This video is to give us some history as to how we have performed in the past, both from year to year and how we've performed compared to the conference. And also with the point to give us an idea of where we would like to continue to go. But first and foremost, we must represent and reference the fact that the MCA 2 test can be considered a pain because you're going to be taken out of class and you have to take a test, etc., etc. However, we believe that our excellence has come from the fact that we consider this an opportunity to represent ourselves. Now, yes, each class is different. Yes, each test is a little bit different each year, but each class has the opportunity to represent itself, so it can do three things. One, to be compared to other schools, and that's important because it can influence new families if they're going to move here or not, if they feel the education is good in Byron. Two, reflect the curriculum of their school. In other words, is the curriculum that they're getting good? Is it doing the right job? Is it performing at a high level? And three, and most importantly, is to compete in a non-athletic environment. Those scores, the MCA test result, represents a cumulative student body effort. It represents all of the juniors, not just some that are out for a certain sport or anything like that or activity. It represents everyone's cumulative knowledge. So it represents, as a class, how you compare and what you've learned and gained from being in Byron. Now, it's important to understand something else, and that is that you are not required to pass this test to graduate, unlike the reading test and the writing test. However, you are required to take it 3 times, and yes, you can fail it 3 times and still graduate, which sounds, yes, ridiculous. However, the state does require, by law, that we provide remediation for you. So as a junior taking this test, if you are not proficient, then what happens is we have to, by law, offer remediation and require that you take it. If you do not, then you are not eligible for the retest. So if you do not take the tests 3 times or become proficient in one of those tests, you will not be allowed to graduate. Now, some schools require seniors to take a course their senior year to get that remediation done. However, in Byron, we've chosen to just take 2 days a week from your lunchtime in guided study hall to remediate and prepare for that second and third attempt if necessary. Now, it is not a punishment, it is a law that requires us to offer remediation. And it is our hope that you will perform well enough on the first assessment this spring that you will be proficient and not have to worry about such a thing your senior year. You will be basically in guided study hall for the first quarter of your senior year because the first retest option for math is at the end of first quarter. So again, we're trying to prepare you with the mindset that we do not want you to have to worry about such a thing your senior year. But most importantly, again, if we take it seriously and do the best we can, we feel that you should be prepared well enough to be proficient. So how do we compare and have compared to the conference in past years? Well, if we look back at 06-07, we had 44.64% of our students, our juniors, proficient, which means that year it was required for graduation at the beginning of this test, and they said that you had to pass it. However, the state did so poorly that they took that back and said you did not have to pass it. This year's 9th graders are the first class that will have to actually pass the test. So they're giving us time to improve our curriculum. But what this tells us is that year, less than half of our students were considered proficient in math. And we ranked 3rd in the conference. The next year, we improved our score. In other words, over half of our kids were then proficient that year's juniors, but again, we were only 4th in the conference. In 08-09, we jumped to 59.8, almost 60%, and that put us at the number 1 spot in the conference. In 2010, we improved again to 65, almost 66%, again putting us at the 1st spot in the conference. And last year, we had our best year, and that was 74% proficient, which put us leaps and bounds above the rest of the conference, even though they improved as well. So we have had a history of excellence in comparison to not only our conference, but the state as well. and each grade has taken it seriously to outperform each past year's set of juniors. So very impressive. And here's a graph that represents us compared to the state. Even though the state has improved, Byron has improved more dramatically. And again, that's a compliment to not just the curriculum or the staff, but mainly to the students for taking it seriously and again, working hard every day and making the most of the opportunity to show that they have gained knowledge and understanding in math. So, what does this mean? I want to skip this one and go right to this page because it represents something very important. It represents how we compare to the rest of the state percentage-wise. Now, what this says here is that last year, 15 represents the fact that we were 15th in the state. There was 14 other schools that performed better than us last year in the MCA math assessment. That puts us at 97.3% ranking, which means that we outperformed over 97% of the other schools in Minnesota. Now, this is important because the previous year's juniors were ranked 16th in the state. In other words, outperforming, again, almost 97% of the state. But what's important here, and my point of this whole process, is to show you that this year's, the juniors of 2010, when they were 8th graders, their ranking was 96.9. They scored better than almost 97% of the state as juniors. And as seniors, they were still able to improve upon that, which is very hard to improve such a high ranking, but they did. But again, my most important observation here is this. Last year's juniors, as 8th graders, were better than 93% of the state, which was less than the previous year's 8th graders. But yet, when they were juniors, they outperformed the previous year's juniors. They not only closed the gap, but they also improved beyond the previous year's juniors, even though, as 8th graders, the grade ahead of them was considered better in the state. So they made the most of their time. It's very impressive. And I say this because if you look at this year's juniors, you guys, as 8th graders, you were considered better than 84% of the rest of the state. The question now is, where are you now? And again, we believe that if you take it seriously and do the best you can on it, with the knowledge you've gained in the past 3 years, you should be able to beat the last year's juniors and be very competitive within the state. So again, each year they take it seriously, and we're very impressed and very pleased about their approach to this test. So again, in closing, we want to represent the fact, or remind the fact, that this is an opportunity. Take it seriously, do the best you can, that's all we ask. Represent yourself, but also represent the school, and continue to perform in a manner that shows that we are an excellent school district that is willing to work hard and to show families, other schools, and the state that we take what we do very seriously and that we want to represent ourselves and Byron as a school of excellence. Good luck.